Hey everybody, KC here. So the other day I was reading a piece that was posted on LinkedIn by Gary Hawkins, our old friend from the Center for Advancing Retail and Technology. And it was about the Kroger-Albertsons deal. And basically Gary's premise was, it is a game changer. And to quote him, he said, this is about nothing so much as the total transformation of the traditional retail food industry. That's a pretty big statement. And he listed 4 ways in which he thought this was going to happen. So I did what I usually do in these cases. I rang him up and asked him if he'd do a Zoom conversation with me on Morning Newsbeat. He said yes, so we did one. It actually ended up running a little bit long. So I've decided to break it up into 2 pieces, and we'll have part 1 today and part 2 tomorrow. So here's my conversation about the Kroger-Albertsons merger with Gary Hawkins of the Center for Advancing Retail and Technology. Gary Hawkins, welcome back to Morning Newsbeat.
Kevin, great to be with you again.
So you wrote this great piece that you ran on LinkedIn about the Kroger-Albertsons deal. And one of the things you said is that basically this is sort of the next step to the total transformation of the traditional retail food industry. And I thought that's a really good place to start, because it seems to me, as I read that line and I read other things that you wrote, that more and more when you talk about these companies, right, Walmart, Amazon, Kroger, Albertsons, is they're actually, what's driving this in a lot of ways is they're transforming from just being retail companies to actually being technology companies. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, no, I think that's a good way to think of it, because they really are, right? Amazon certainly is a tech company, right? It always has been tech first. Walmart and Kroger, of traditional retailers, I think are probably the 2 that are the most forward-looking that way and have been actively seeking to change their organizations, change the way they view the retail business, change the way they go to market and operate, to a digital future.
Mm-hmm. And Walmart actually has been, I think remarkably effective at making that transformation, far more than I might have expected just a few years ago. I mean, I think Doug McMillon has done an amazing job of transforming the priorities of that organization.
No, he has. And, as I mentioned, I think in good part from a number of the acquisitions that he's made, right, to help speed up the digital transformation and get Walmart thinking differently. And, not to sort of diverge from our focus here, but I think that looking to the future, I think that is where the real battle is going to be. It's going to be around how organizations think, how they operate, right? It's around the sort of culture war of, are you digital first, or are you still stuck in, traditional retail?
Yeah, I've always felt that one of the different, one of the key differences is between Amazon and Walmart is that, Walmart wants to take advantage of all this technology to sell us more stuff. And that Amazon really just wants, it has a much broader view of the world, and that it wants to be sort of inextricably intertwined with every facet of our lives. And I think that's remained true. And the Kroger-Albertsons deal, it seems to me, positions them much more effectively to compete with Walmart's priorities, but not to go after Amazon in its sort of the way it looks at the planet.
So I think that's a good assessment. Amazon seems to want to be everywhere in your life, right? What did I just read within the last couple of days? I think it's in the UK market. They're going to be getting into the insurance business. Mm-hmm. So they're going everywhere. And certainly Walmart, much more focused around wanting to sell you stuff, right? And very much Kroger, especially with the Albertsons proposed deal, is aligned with Walmart in that focus.
Which is not to say that Walmart doesn't want to move outside its lanes when it can, as it seems to be doing more and more in healthcare. And we'll talk a little bit more about that And Amazon sure clearly wants to sell you more stuff because that's why they're going to spend $1 gazillion on getting Black Friday football, so they can get people on their site, so they can sell them more stuff while they're there. But let's talk about there were some basic elements that you pointed to, 4 key areas where you think Amazon, Walmart, and then a Kroger-Albertsons combination, assuming it's approved by the FTC, where they're going to focus their attention. And one was retail media networks. And I thought that was really, I was interested to use that one first because, it seems like right now, everybody and their brother is either trying to start a retail media network or join a retail media network or sell a retail media network to somebody. And I keep thinking to myself, I keep wondering, is there a point at which it's going to become so much clutter, so much noise, and become the digital version of all those magazines the retailers were starting 15, 20 years ago, most of which don't even exist today?
Yeah. So yes, I think there is a point where it's going to become just so much clutter. That being said, right, when you look at what certainly Amazon has, but when you look at the network that Walmart, has built and continues to build out, and what Kroger is doing, they are incredibly powerful for an advertiser, for a CPG brand marketer, right? Because not only the ability to access a massive audience, in one stop, but the data, especially the data that an Amazon or a Kroger has, to help that marketer really fine tune the audience they want to reach, the myriad vehicles they have to reach that shopper, consumer. But the real secret sauce in my mind is that full attribution from, you're in the audience, we know you've seen this ad, we know you went to the store, and we know you made that purchase, right? That's incredibly powerful for a marketer.
Right. Yes, I agree. I mean, I think that to me, and this is sort of where we get into the area of how other companies, not named Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, right, are going to compete in this new environment. One of the keys to me is making sure that whatever those communications are via that retail media network, I mean, have to be relevant, have to be resonant. And the danger that many retailers often make, and I think, big companies do this as much as anybody, is they grab for the dollar. They think more about how much they chase the buck that they're going to get in terms of advertising dollars, right? As opposed to chasing the customer. And I think that's always a danger. So smaller companies, which is, say, almost everybody else, it seems to me one of the ways you compete in that environment is to make sure that you're being very, very targeted, and not just saying, oh yeah, we'll let them advertise on a retail media network because they're going to write us a big check. Because that's where this big whole thing breaks down for me.
So I agree with you. That being said, I think when you look at those three, Amazon, Walmart, Kroger, Albertsons, certainly Amazon and Kroger, I think, are very mindful of the customer and customer value, even customer lifetime value, right? Again, Kroger and Amazon have immense amounts of data, and they use that data. They live and die by that data. Walmart is getting there, but a little less so. So I think those big three are going to be mindful of that. It's everybody else, Kevin, particularly, the smaller retailers that I think have a much bigger risk of saying, oh, we'll just take that check and,
fair point.
Show whatever we want to, whoever wants to buy that space, gets access to the audience. Because the smaller retailers are, I don't want to say desperate for the money, but they're not as sophisticated when it comes to understanding and leveraging and using all this data.
Well, they've got different margin demands, right? And so if they have to cut their margins in order to be able to be competitive in any way, shape, or form, competitive on prices, and they God knows it's more expensive to hire people these days. One of the ways you compensate for that is by taking those checks in. But it's going to be a real delicate balance for those retailers. I agree with you.
It is. And I think the other big challenge is, those big networks, those three we're focused on here today, but you can add in a couple others like Target and so on. If you're a brand marketer, you're reaching pretty much everybody in the country, probably a couple times over, just in those networks. And, as a marketer, you'd have to ask yourself, why do I need to go somewhere else?
Fair point. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and we could probably do an hour just on this subject. The other interesting thing to me is that, these are, I don't necessarily think these are going to be additional promotion dollars, right? Or advertising dollars. They've got to come from somewhere. So the
sure.
pie is being recut and reallocated, but it's not like, it's not like the dollars are suddenly there's going to be 20% more dollars out there because all of a sudden there's all these retail media networks.
No, they're from the brand perspective, their total marketing budget is their total marketing budget. But as you call out, what's happening is shifting around of those dollars. Some are coming from traditional trade promotion, others are coming from what was shopper marketing, and so on, right?
Some going to come from traditional media, right? If you can target customers
absolutely
faster, why would you want to advertise on, broadcast television, or I was going to say newspapers, but I don't think they do that much newspaper advertising anymore. Okay, let's move to number two. You talk about financial performance and the idea that these three companies are going to have such an enormous financial advantage that they're going to be focused on hyper automation in a way that's going to totally give them an advantage over almost everybody else.
Yeah. And, when we speak about automation, the first thing nearly everyone thinks of is, robots and physical automation, right? A lot of that's happening across distribution centers, Walmart putting in micro-fulfillment centers alongside a growing number of stores, Kroger, Ocado, of course, Amazon. But what I'm really thinking of when I wrote that was process automation, using software to automate a growing number, if you will, of business processes. Right. That's where I think we're going to see just massive change happen. And, everything I'm seeing so far is significant cost savings, resource savings, as companies automate more and more processes. And the other side of that automation is better, faster, more effective decisions coming out of those automated systems.
And again, are those solutions going to be, those kinds of solutions, are they going to be available to smaller retailers?
Right. And, I guess it really depends on how you define smaller.
Right.
So, is something like this available to the 30, 20, even $10 billion a year retailer? Yes, increasingly. But the real difference is the big guys can move faster in more areas at the same time. And you're going to see the big guys, with artificial intelligence, to really optimize AI, those data models, those processes have to be tailored, if you will, to that specific scenario or that company. Smaller regional guys are going to be taking more off-the-shelf AI. Still provides a benefit, but not as much benefit as the big guys can get by truly tailoring those AI systems and capabilities to exactly what they're doing.
It's going to put a lot of pressure on wholesalers, it seems to me, who are bigger, have greater resources to figure out ways to provide these solutions to their retail customers, right? Because, I mean, for no other reason than if they don't figure out ways to keep their retail customers competitive, and that means they won't be alive and they're going to lose their customer base. I mean, they become less less able to survive themselves if they're not able to kind of infuse the regional and independent sector with these kinds of solutions.
Absolutely. And to back up to what we were just talking about, retail media networks. I mean, I've been for the last couple of years talking with, some of the big wholesalers around. Effectively, they need to get their act together here and build out a retail media network across the thousands of stores they supply. Right. If they don't do that, they're missing out on, what's becoming a significant revenue stream to help their retailers supplement their bottom lines, to help cover the costs of e-commerce and other things. And I'm not seeing anybody yet on the wholesale side being anywhere near as aggressive as I think they should be.
As I said before, that's the end of part one. We'll have part two tomorrow.